We are in the second week of our summer reading list, and probably more accurately stated, we are in the second week of my summer reading list, a practice that I have retrieved from my childhood in order to invite us into an expanded capacity of our known and unknown understanding of spirituality. We're studying these 3 books this month. The Universe is Calling by Eric Butterworth. That's a Unity classic on prayer. I haven't read it yet, but trust me, I'm getting going on it right now. Inside Out Healing that we're talking about today, in the book of Mark, which we talked about last week. In looking at the book of Mark, there were bits and pieces that I was very familiar with, especially the wisdom sayings. And some of my favorite wisdom sayings come from the book of Mark. Your faith has made you well. Oh my gosh, my faith has made me well. That's so exciting. Everything is possible for one who believes. And then one of my other favorites is ask in prayer and believe that you have received it. Oh, I didn't say it right. It's one of my favorites. Ask for it in prayer, believe that you receive, and it shall be yours. Thank you so much. I'm present. Anyway, those are some of my favorites. So then we took the opportunity in that review of the book of Mark to look at one particular parable. And in this story, I found particularly inspiring and particularly interesting and particularly resonant with me. It was the parable of the young rich man who was invited to release his attachment to his possessions, to his personality, and his perfection. For it is in surrendering those things, his personality or our personality, our possessions, and our perfection, that we can truly be invited into the kingdom of God. And what is the kingdom of God? This is a test. This is not a test. The kingdom of God is that pure, what is it, Robert?
I don't know.
Oh, you don't know? I thought you were like, I know. Well, here's what I'm going to say it is. It's the purest, cleanest, most divine experience of joy and love and peace. It's the purest, purest, purest of those experiences that we can possibly imagine, and then some. It's that opportunity when we release that, and surrender to all those things, that we can be free, that we can stand in our freedom, and that we can live a full and healthy life, which segues beautifully to this week's book, Inside Out Healing, Transforming Your Life Through the Power of Presence. It was recommended to me to put on my summer reading list by a religious science minister, and I said, okay, I had faith. And my faith will make me well. I had faith and I ordered it. It came in the mail and I was like, it's so long. But on the back it says, Inside Out Healing will help you become more available and fully connected with yourself and others, build a solid foundation for healing in all areas of your life, be able to handle difficult situations with more elegance and ease. I like that. Improve both personal and professional relationships, expand your capacity for genuine empathy and compassion, experience more richness, gratitude, and fulfillment. And can you believe I read the whole thing in 1 week?
Wow.
It's a powerful, power-packed book. And the simple premise is this: change your story, change your life. So it's not anything new, it's just couched in some different language. And at first I didn't jive very well with the words that Richard Moss used because they weren't very unity. They weren't even new thoughts. And here a religious science minister had recommended this book, and I thought, oh, I'm going to have to translate the whole thing into unity speak. But not really, because the premise is universal and the practice is powerful. The practice simply is the invitation to tell our story in its fullness about our situation, our challenge, our circumstance, or our condition, And then allow all the feelings and thoughts that unravel in the telling of the story. Feel those feelings, experience them, and come home to center. Come back to the present moment. So it's actually a beautiful loop, and I'll say it again, then we're going to get it up on the PowerPoint, but it's an invitation to tell our story in its fullness about our situation, a challenge, a condition, or a circumstance. In telling that story, unraveling the difference between the facts and the feelings, feeling the feelings, feeling those feelings all the way through, and then returning home, inside home to that kingdom of God. I think being in that place or that experience of home is what it's all about. I think that's really, truly, it is in this present moment where God's love abounds, the energy of life convenes, divine intelligence lives, and wholeness, our wholeness, exists. I think this really is what all of us are longing to come home to, this experience of the present moment. Oh, Peg's taking a picture with her phone, but it gets better, okay? The author, Richard Moss, says this: every instant of being fully present in the moment is an instant of healing. The body actually reorganizes itself in greater or lesser degrees of wholeness according to how present you are. Now, of course, I had to translate that and tweak it just a little bit because I believe that healing happens on many levels. Healing isn't only about the expression that's going on in our body. It's the expression and the experience that we're having in our mind and our body and in our soul. So the Mindy Tucker version is like this: every instant of being fully present in the moment is an instant of healing. The body, mind, and soul actually reorganize in greater or lesser degrees of wholeness according to how present you are. So, the more present we are, the more we're going to reorganize the cells in our body, and the more that we're going to actually restructure our DNA to have an experience and a knowing and an awareness of God's love, of the energy of life, of that divine intelligence, and feel our wholeness in our body. When we reorganize our mind to realign our thoughts, realign our beliefs with God's love, energy, life energy, with divine intelligence and our wholeness, then our thoughts and our mind is going to be healed. And when we do this, when we are present in this moment for our soul, those stories that we've been carrying around for lifetimes are healed. They are healed. So I started to read this book, and I kept reading this book, and I thought, this is powerful, powerful work. The practice that he invites us into, which is called the mandala of being. Has anybody done Richard Moss's work? I mean, I had never heard of him before. It's huge. And I started to get very nervous, and I started to get very scared, because on Sunday morning I have 17 minutes to present this entire body of work, and I kept thinking, oh my goodness, this is a workshop. And then I read a few more pages, and I said, this isn't a workshop, this is a class. And then I was like, this isn't a workshop, a class, or a Sunday lesson. This is something that we won't learn in the snap moment or in an instant. We will learn it by practicing it and applying it and actually embodying it for the rest of our life. It is a lifelong work to come home to God. It's a lifelong work of ours to come back to that knowing of our oneness with all of life. It's our lifelong work to be more and more in the present moment so we can have more of God's love, more of the energy of life, more divine intelligence, and more of our wholeness. Now he calls this work, this practice, the mandala of being. And I love that because in life, just like a mandala, we have that core, that center, that place where we know that we're one with God. But we go out into the world and we have drama, or we go out into the world and we have other experiences. And so here we are creating these beautiful mandalas of life, starting in the center, going out, not always in a straight line, and coming back to center. Here it is in words what the process is. Center yourself in the present moment. Tell the story about your situation, challenge, circumstance, or condition. Feel into the feelings that are revealed in your telling of the story, and then feel into the feelings that are underneath that. And already you can see why Rome was not built in a day. This is something that it takes time and takes gentleness and takes attention and sometimes needs community to engage in. When I start thinking about the circumstance or the story or that condition that happens, it's not always easy, but it is actually far more painful to be attached to the story than it is to the fact of the circumstance itself. And I can give you two quick examples. The first example is, think of an athlete who has sustained an injury that prevents him from continuing on in his career. That in itself, those facts can be very painful to know. But what's even more painful is when that athlete decides that his life is over and not worth living because he can no longer play. See what I mean? It's like when somebody you love dies, or you go through that unwanted or messy divorce. It's one thing to feel all that pain, but it's far worse. The suffering is far worse if you've made the decision or you start telling your story that you'll never find love again. So as we go out and tell our stories, those feelings are going to come up and we're just going to go, well, would you look at that? I had no idea. And then underneath that feeling, there might be another feeling. And you're like, I had no idea I was carrying that one either. And then express, come back to center. You can even retell your story. You can even go through the facts. And notice how different you feel. Because you have released your attachment to the story. You've released the drama. And you've allowed yourself to be just in those instances that much more in the kingdom of God. And then step 5 is repeat that. Loop is necessary. Go out, come back. Go out, come back. There's a mandala that he offers in his book, and it looks like this. It's a diagram where now is in the very center. So if you think, I am in the now right here, he says spend 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes just being fully present in the now. And then as you tell your story, you're going to notice that you go in one of 4 general directions. If you go to the 12 o'clock direction, your story is all about the future. Well, that's a fantasy. It's imaginary. It's not real. It's like someday I'm going to, or someday I might. So those stories are not real, but they feel real because we've attached emotions to them. Or they go in the 6 o'clock direction. They're in the past. They're nostalgic. Boy, I just wish we could go back to the time when we could sit on the beach. Boy, I just wish we could go back to the time when we were all together. They're very nostalgic, or they could be full of regret. Gosh, I wish I hadn't gotten so angry in that moment. Or gosh, I wish I hadn't had that 5th glass of wine. I used to say that almost every morning, and that's why I don't drink anymore. But those kinds of regret and grief can be anchored in the past. And then at the 3 o'clock position, we have the you, which is more than just a person, but it's all the yous out there. It's like you politicians, and you government, and you bank of whatever, and you monetary problems, or you the person I'm in a relationship with. It's all those things out there. It's very outward directed. Or the stories could be very inward focused. They could be at that 9 o'clock position that says me. Gosh, if I was a better person, this wouldn't have happened. Or if I'd only thought to say this, this wouldn't happen. So this could be positive. You could be saying, wow, I'm really proud of myself for the way I did da 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 da. but is very me. So that's the one in the book. If I was teaching the workshop, the visual would look like this. Now that green spot in the center is who we really are. We're surrounded by who we imagine ourselves to be. And then the quadrants or the mandala is the same. So you is about anger, jealousy, or bitterness. The past is about guilt, regret, and nostalgia. The me is about insecurity, grandiosity, self-hatred. Or the future is about fear or hope. So this is the process. And now you understand why I was kind of freaked out. And I thought, how can I ever present this in my 17 minutes? And I wrestled with it. And have you ever gotten a message from the universe where you've been like working something and your brain is steaming and your heart is pumping over here and you think, I'm going to get it, I'm going to get it, I'm going to get it. And now you're in an entirely different context over here and the answer comes? So this is what happens. On Friday, Jean Sinclair is painting the entire deck. The deck is huge, and I'm thinking, this problem is so huge, how are we ever going to accomplish it? And then here's Jean going, this deck is so huge. He says, but I know how to paint it. So I go out there, I'm taking Jean a piece of pizza, and I'm like, thank you for doing it. It's such a huge project. It seems so daunting. And he says, well, it's just like eating an elephant. One bite at a time. I'm like, we can do this. One bite at a time. Like we in our lives can take this life we're gone, one bite at a time. Thank you for that amazing, timely message from God. Because we do. We think this is too big, my story's too old, I'm too entrenched. I've been telling this story not only for this lifetime, but I've done regression, and it's been like, 17 lifetimes I've been telling this story. But we can, one bite at a time, come to center, tell our story, notice the feelings, feel the feelings, come back to center, loop out again. We make amazingly beautiful mandalas with our lives. Richard Moss includes 3 case studies, and I'll share one of them with you. It's about a man named Joseph who went to a seminar that Richard Moss was giving, and he's been giving these seminars for 35 years, and there's one for free online if you want to take it on the mandala of being. But he was in a real life seminar, and he volunteered, and Abraham, you would say, he was in the hot seat because he came up and he was there all by himself, but he agreed to learn in public. And he told his story, and his story was that he had had cancer, and he had gone out and got a new scan, and on that new scan it showed new tumors on his liver. And his story was that his wife then went into high gear, and she started doing all this research online. And she said, I've got it all worked out. We're going to take you to Brazil to a healer there, and then we're going to go to China, and you're going to go on this special diet and live with monks, and then I'm going to take you to Italy. And the more she talked about this, and the more she got excited about what could be done, he noticed he got more and more depressed, and quieter and quieter and quieter. So this is where he picks up his story and enters the process. Richard Moss asked him to get quiet, spend 3 to 5 minutes. What do you feel? And when Joseph said, I feel calm, then he began to tell his story. And as he began to tell his story, Richard Moss asked questions that started to unravel and differentiate between the fact, yes, you have new tumors on your liver, and the feelings. And what Joseph got to see is that those feelings that he was carrying around, because he thought, I just feel pressured, I feel pressured. And that pressure was actually what was driving him into depression. So he went, I feel pressured, and when he kind of blew through that pressure, he goes, and I feel so angry. And underneath that anger, once he expressed that anger, was I feel so helpless. I feel a great despair. And he cried and cried and cried. Then Richard Moss invited him to come back to now, back to center, back to that place, and said, let's tell your story again, but just the facts this time. So Joseph stood there and he said, the facts are that I have new tumors on my liver, and I'm standing up straight. He said, the fact is I had these new tumors, and I actually feel excited. He said, this is such an odd feeling. He said, I feel like living. I feel like committing to living a full life. I feel like I could actually do something about living. And his whole life then shifted because he was willing to go through the pressure, the anger, the sadness, and he says, I'm standing up straight. He said, so all those stories that were about me, like I should be doing something, he got to see, I'm going to choose something different. And when he looked over here at his wife and those stories that he told about his wife, he said, all she's really saying is that she loves me and that she wants to be with me. And I can see that now. He said, I did not see that before. So you see what a powerful, lifelong practice this mandala of being can be. Such wisdom is available to everyone, but it cannot be listened to until you stop polluting yourself with stories that cloud your ability to dive deep within yourself. Grace comes after you make a sincere and intelligent effort to be who you really are right now, and not who your thinking mind says you are. As you become liberated from the drama of your stories, you can let go and allow every story to be explored, every feeling to be felt, every moment to be just the way it is. That is your work and your responsibility. Big stuff. Big, powerful stuff in a big, long book. But you've gotten a taste of it. And you've gotten an idea of how liberating telling your story can be. And you've gotten an idea of how graciously and wondrously that you've created your mandala of being. And it begins here, on the inside, which is actually here in the now. So let's go into meditation and have an experience of that centering now moment. Have an experience of being present, opening our hearts and our minds and our bodies to the divine by singing, Pour Yourself in Me.